Disney classics, original shows, documentaries, and more. There's a new streaming service in town.
We're Andrea and Patty, and we're now streaming Disney+.
Hey everyone, this is Andrea with justisafourletterword.com and themeparkparents.com.
And I'm Patty Holiday from NoGuiltDisney.com and the No Guilt Disney podcast.
Today, Patty, we finally get to talk about one of our very favorite shows on Disney+. Are you ready for the Mandalorian gallery series behind the scenes?
So ready for this. And I have to laugh because if you remember way back when, the very first episode of The Mandalorian, neither one of us were like it's good.
Yeah, it was, well, I was pretty into it, but I was surprised that it was so not what I was expecting.
Right. It was definitely, it definitely was different than I think either one of us expected. And I haven't listened to that episode, but if anybody wants to go back and listen to it, I do know Andrea and I recorded it like immediately as soon as we could get our hands on The Mandalorian. And we both just laughed because we were like, I just remember us being kind of tepid about it. Like we didn't fall in love with it immediately, but that quickly changed.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember that first episode. I'll have to go back and listen because I'm having a different memory because I'm thinking, I pretty much remember loving it. And I remember thinking at first, like, oh, this is kind of slow paced, but I like it. And I remember falling in love with the music.
Yes. Yeah. We both liked elements of it, but I just remember and I could be misremembering too. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything and I should have just listened to that episode first. But anywho.
Listen, it might be true, but I would like to forget that part. If there's any point in my life that I didn't love The Mandalorian the way I do now,
please forgive me.
Then I will be very sad as I gently pat my the child plush here sitting next to me at my desk.
I know, right? Like quickly things changed. And so here we are months later. I mean, November was a long time ago. Months later, we are talking about Disney Gallery, Star Wars, The Mandalorian. This is a behind the scenes look at the making of the series, which I think perfectly marries like all of our nerdiness when it comes to Disney and movie making and TV shows, because not only are we getting to talk about something that we loved and that we are super passionate about, being Star Wars first of all, but then secondly, we both really bought into and we really enjoyed The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, I dork out and enjoy it's like my favorite thing when I can hear a filmmaker or somebody from behind the scenes kind of shed some light on what really happened or how this all came together or what the story behind the story was. Mm-hmm. My absolutely favorite. I love that. I think if I could live in Los Angeles and like hang out on movie sets all day long, they don't even have to feed me, from craft services. I just want to be able to soak it all in and kind of just watch and be an observer. Like I'm that kind of person. So
I am too. And what I really loved about this series, or so far what we've seen, is the roundtable aspect, because it's different than other behind the scenes shows. I mean, we're used to seeing like an interviewer and an interviewee sort of walking through a set and saying, this is where we did this and here's this prop, and that's neat. But I really just love seeing them sit around that table and just have a conversation. It's like it's kind of exactly what you just said. We're just eavesdropping on this whole process, and it's really interesting to me because it's a little bit show, but it's a little bit behind the scenes, but it's a lot more of just why they're all such Star Wars fans. It's more than just filmmaking.
Yes, and I think that was the thing that I was delighted the most out of. So we've only seen the first 2 episodes. The third episode is dropping soon, but we're recording it in advance. So we haven't seen the third episode yet. But there's going to be a total of 8 chapters talking about the behind the scene and showing us some never before seen footage and that sort of thing. But the first episode, they had all the directors that directed the season 1 come. And I knew, because I had paid attention and was excited for the fact that there was a different director. I think a couple of them did more than one, but we had different directors, and so we were going to have different feels for each episode of the series. Yeah. But I also knew a little bit of their background, that they were all on some level Star Wars passionate fans. And so this Disney gallery, when like you just described that round table of all the directors sitting around this table talking about how each of their episodes and how it came to be, or what their vision was, or what their challenges were. Just, oh my gosh, it was so cool. It was just so cool.
It really was. And, you know, I knew there were multiple directors, but I guess maybe I didn't pay close enough attention. Like, I just assumed they were all sort of working together. It never really occurred to me that each of them had like their own sort of episode that they were at the helm, which makes sense because that's how they do it. But it just never really clicked until I watched, you know, the behind the scenes, and I was like, oh, now I want to go back. You know, seeing this,
yes.
I have a feeling I'm going to watch through this series, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to be like, oh, that is so her style, or oh, that is so Dave Filoni, you know, and I'll be able to pick up on a lot more of the nuances between their styles. I also, in the first couple of episodes, I mean, any Star Wars fan who is a super fan and loves this behind the scenes stuff, which if you're loving this and you're listening to this, that's probably you, knows what a Star Wars fan Dave Filoni is. And I just got the biggest kick out of listening to him talk, because he's just like us, you guys. Like, he's just sharing his love of this story, and it totally comes through in everything he says. And they're all, all the other directors are just like hanging on his every word.
Yeah, that was the most pleasant surprise for me. I got to see Dave up on the stage at D23 Expo this year. He came out with Jon Favreau and kind of introduced and teased us with a little bit of Mandalorian way back then, before we knew what we were getting into. I am not as familiar with him as far as his work. I mean, I take it back. I used to be a huge King of the Hill fan, and he was very much in charge of that at one point. But so I do know who Dave Filoni is, but I really hadn't had a lot of experience, kind of, you know, with his interviews and that sort of thing. So watching him describe, we're not gonna spoil it for you, because you've got to hear the whole story in Dave's perspective and his voice. But he tells how he originally got hired to work on a Star Wars project in the first place. Yeah. And that story is the biggest, nerdiest, geekiest, like, fangirl dreams that you could ever imagine. Like, he was living his best life, and he was like, I didn't even care if I didn't get the job. And in fact, I mean, it's a hilarious story, guys. So again, I can't do it justice. You need to go and watch this show to see what he had to say, but it was great. But then on top of that, I think it's in the Legacy, in episode 2, in the Legacy one, he talks some more about Phantom Menace. And if you know me, I hate Phantom Menace. Like, I tell people just to skip it. Like, you really don't. Okay, Anakin was a kid. That's all you need to know. Move on. Like, it's so painful for me to watch, until I heard Dave Filoni talk through a specific scene, an explanation behind it, and really expound on it. And all of a sudden I'm like, Dave Filoni, I love Phantom Menace. You've changed my mind.
Wow, that's quite the turnaround.
Awesome. Not quite that passionate, but I did say, I was like, I will now give it a shot, because now that I've heard what he pulled out of it, and again, it's just the passion that he brings to anything Star Wars, I think.
Yes, I agree.
It got me.
And of course, he's behind the Clone Wars, which is huge right now, especially just wrapping up. I think the finale just happened. I think it just happened. And so he's got a huge fan base already from that show alone. And I don't think I realized how far his influence spread throughout the Star Wars universe. I knew he was Clone Wars, but I didn't realize he had anything to do with Phantom Menace or any of that. So it's a really interesting look into some parts of Star Wars you may not know. And if you know all of this stuff already, you will still enjoy watching it, because you're seeing it. You're hearing from their mouths, you know, their own stories. And it's a great little show. It's enough to hold us over for season 2 of The Mandalorian, which we are so excited is still on schedule. They are not delaying the release. And so that is excellent news. So that will be later on in the fall.
Yeah, one of the Bobs announced that. I think it was Chapek, right?
Yes.
Earlier this week. And I think every Star Wars fandom was like, oh, praise the maker, because we needed, okay, right, in this time of COVID, we need something to look forward to. So knowing that was still pretty much on track made us all super duper happy. But yeah, so definitely sit down and watch this one. A new episode of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, streams every Friday on Disney Plus.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts about it, so join us on Facebook at our now streaming Disney Plus podcast Facebook group.
All right, y'all. See you real soon.
Bye-bye.